Hello and welcome back to the show. So I'm really excited about my guest today, David Clark. And just to kind of give you guys an idea of who David is, he is the founder of WithJoy.AI as well as DealJoy.AI. And his goal is to help real estate agents generate more leads and also redefine value in this new day and age with AI tech, and especially after the post NAR settlement. Uh, Era, if you will. So, David, man, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you on to talk to us a little bit more about AI in real estate, how you're helping agents, and how agents can leverage, kind of this new opportunity out there to generate more business.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Kobe. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, for our listeners out there who may not know who you are or haven't looked too deep into kind of your background, would you mind just sharing a little bit more about what you do? How did you get to this point, and maybe a little bit about your background?
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, hi everyone. Dave Clark here. It's a fairly common name. I think there's about 30,000 Dave Clarks in the U.S. So sometimes it's a pro and a con, I guess. Sometimes you can blend in online, but then when you're trying to, build a name for yourself, it kind of makes it difficult. But yeah, so I've been in real estate for a long time. I would say most of my career, I've been at least in the startup realm. I've been focused on real estate. So my first startup was RentMe. So it was a property management software platform for small to mid-size landlords. We were focusing on up to 100 doors. So we started that in 2015, had a partnership with Zillow for a while there for syndication. And then obviously they ended up building a Zillow Rental Manager, which, is also a great tool, but then they kind of moved away from, partnering with the third party rental platform. So it wasn't great for RentMe, but a good lesson learned in platform risk there. And then after that, I went to another startup that one was actually unrelated to real estate, but after that wound up at Amazon. So I was actually running an AI team at Amazon. It was the content understanding team. So what we were doing there was we were trying to, for Amazon.com, like the retail website, figure out influencers upload tons of photos and videos and all this digital content, and it's way too much to manually make sense of where it goes. So and I was the engineering manager for the content understanding team. So we would actually analyze all this with machine learning and AI and figure out where to show it on the website, which customers it's relevant for, et cetera. And then at the end of last year, that's when I left to go back into a full time real estate startup. So that's when my co-founder and I co-founded WithJoy.AI. So as I'm sure a lot of your listeners are aware, NAR DOJ lawsuit happened last year, so that was a really hot button topic. And I think at least in our camp, and I'd love to get your thoughts on what you had thought, but our sentiment was that okay, well obviously sellers are going to stop offering this buyer agent commission if they don't have to anymore. Now cooperative compensation's gone. Like, oh, this is going to be a great time to innovate. So we were kind of going the route of like, let's start a AI powered real estate brokerage. And we say AI powered because obviously like real estate requires that human touch, human presence. So you're never going to take an AI agent or AI and replace the real estate agent. It's just not remotely possible. And transparently, I'm sure your listeners will get a kick out of this. I think earlier we were thinking that we were going to be able to do a lot more with AI, having AI backgrounds ourselves in real estate than actually now that we've been running, a decent number of transactions and things like that. It's actually a little bit less than what we had initially projected because there's a lot of, weird edge cases and things like that that come up. But anyway, so we started that with Joy.ai. We launched in Washington State. 70% commission rebate. So that was the model there. And we are having some success, but it's not you know, we didn't see the market change because now that we're over a year out after the NAR DOJ settlement, the decrease in seller offered buyer agent commission, depending on the source, it's somewhere in like the single digit basis point decrease down to maybe like low teens. So really the market hasn't changed, consumer behavior hasn't changed. And I guess for better or for worse, probably overall good for real estate agents and the industry for professionals, that buyer agent commission hasn't gone away. So that's where internally we quickly realized like, well, there's not really, okay, so the market didn't change. There's not really like a problem with the transaction process. It's already like a solved problem. It's really more the biggest problem is how do you connect with new home buyers and home sellers? So that's what led us to kind of spin out this other product under with Joy.ai. It was an internal tool we developed to connect with homeowners. So it's called DealJoy.ai. And that's where we're using AI to actually do market research in local markets to find homeowners that are more likely to sell their house. And then we help connect. Initially, it was just us with them, but now we've actually expanded this out to a tool to help agents across the country connect with homeowners in their market using AI. So, kind of the 60-second background on myself is, I've done a number of real estate focused startups, and I guess one other one too that I had did in the in between Amazon and with Joy was PropSpector.ai. So we had actually developed some computer vision models that would find distressed properties. So basically we would find commercial imagery of properties that were off market. We would run AI models on all of those and then find properties that were likely to sell. So it was basically like an owner that maybe didn't care about the property, they inherited it, and it just became kind of going by the way. So that was popular with like fix and flippers, even some agents that were trying to, solicit new business and things like that. So we could identify. So we actually sold that business at the beginning of 2025. But long story short, a lot of AI experience, or relatively speaking, a lot, and a lot of AI in real estate startups. So that's my background.
That's really cool, man. So, I mean, what I heard there was that you guys are starting with kind of a concept with an AI based, AI powered, like you mentioned, business in real estate. And you noticed that the market wasn't necessarily going in the direction that you had originally predicted. And you made a quick shift. And now you guys are helping agents, right, in a different
Correct.
way
Yeah.
when it's powering their business with AI as well. So I'm sure you learned a lot in between that shift. Was that something that you guys did fairly quickly making that shift, or was it something that you guys maybe saw for a few months and then, started looking a little bit deeper into, what can we do with this, and then eventually pulled the trigger?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so we had launched, kind of at the end of 2024, and we started to do all these things to try to spin up interest in the brokerage from, really buyers was who we were going after. And I'm sure like a lot of agents out there, we've done a lot of things like online ads and these things that necessarily don't really translate well, or they don't translate to sales at a, profitable a rate, we'll say. So the acquisition cost, because, and like, especially on some of the keywords that we were bidding on, we would pay $200 a click for people to come to our website, and then we're doing this huge commission rebate model. So it was originally very difficult to get traction. So that's where we very quickly realized, like, oh, because we were outsiders, so we didn't have like, I've been personally a real estate investor for about 10 years now, but it's very different doing it for yourself versus being an agent for someone else. And you think you have a good understanding of, oh, here are the problems within real estate, from a very like technical in the weeds, like, oh, I know how I want to purchase a property. But then when you're actually doing it for someone else as a licensed agent, it's a very different problem. And really the big problems that we discovered very quickly is like, how do you establish trust with home buyers and home sellers? And it's very hard to do that digitally, online only, with just advertising and things like that. And then how do you find them? So it's like, not only you have to establish trust, but you have to find them first to be able to get to that point. So that was really the kind of the light bulb moment. It's like, okay, well, actually, the transaction portion isn't what we need to focus. Because early days, we were like, okay, well, we can automate all the forms, we can have AI fill out everything. Obviously, a human broker agent still needs to review everything and make sure that it was done correctly. We would never send out anything like without human approval, but it could be like a huge productivity boost, huge time savings, could actually do some of the transaction coordination work for us. But that wasn't the problem. It's how do you find more customers? How do you basically build your real estate business? And that's what led us to kind of spin out the DealJoy.AI tool, which is using AI to connect with more homeowners in this case.
Yeah, that's so interesting because, you were going in and originally trying to build a business, right, that's consumer focused, and you realized that the biggest issue for, other real estate agents was the same issue that you were facing was how do we
Yeah.
get in front of consumers, right? How do we get in front of
Yeah.
leads? How do we generate clients?
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly. And it is kind of funny because you see like the top performing agents, traditionally speaking, they're the ones that are able to drive that distribution. And I mean, like, you have the pinnacle, you see a lot. I mean, I'm sure we all know who they are, but the top agents have Netflix shows now. It's like, oh, and now everyone knows who they are, their household names. And it's like, that is the actual problem that we need to solve. And there is this new technology window that's opened up, which is amazing. We only get these technology windows every so often. And I mean, even if you look back on the history of real estate and how technology's transformed that, I mean, some of these technologies have been incredibly transformed. I mean, look at like online MLS, like that's been such like, I'm not old enough to know what that was like before the internet. But I mean, I from stories I hear, it was literally someone driving around compiling a phone book of listings in the city, and it's just like, wow, what a time savings that, that. So, I don't know if this is quite AI is going to be quite as transformative as like the online movement from listings, but this is another technology window, and there is disruption coming, and there are new ways to connect with homeowners and home buyers now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is, I would say, of course, the number one issue most agents have, even top producing agents, is how do we get more leads? How do we build a pipeline of leads that is consistent, most likely, or in best case scenario, hands off, right? This is not something that the agents want to work all the time, 24/7. So you mentioned a little bit earlier about what you guys are doing with AI, helping agents generate leads. So I would love to get your take on what you guys are doing with that, right? Because there's so many different, ways to utilize AI out there. And you did mention also there are limitations to it, right? We always kind of have this expectation of what AI can do, and it doesn't quite do as much as we think, and we maybe get a little frustrated.
Yeah.
But I would love to hear what you guys are doing with helping agents generate leads through AI, because that's a big deal.
Yeah, 100%. So what and actually to address your latter point first, it is funny because we're on this technology curve right now where the rate of AI improvement is really fast and really good. Excuse me. So it's very hard for us to predict. Like we just look at a problem, we think, oh, AI can solve that. But then when you actually start to productionize these systems and try to make it reliable so that 99.9% of the time it's doing what you want, it's actually not that great for a lot of use cases because with LLMs in particular, you don't get highly deterministic behavior run after run after run where you do with code. So it's like you have to figure out what are the good use cases for that. But yeah, so what we're doing with AI in our marketing, which we eventually spun out into a tool, and we actually don't sell the tool in Washington State because we operate there, so it actually it works pretty well. So we're like, we're going to keep this for ourselves here. But in any of the other 49 states right now, it's available. But our kind of first principle that we get back to is how do we add value to homeowners in our market. So it's like a lot of marketing, especially with real estate and especially online. Traditionally, it's focused on me, me, me. Here's about me. Here's about my brokerage. Here's about why you should use me. Really, everyone cares about themselves. So we're thinking like, how can we use AI to hyper personalize all of our communication to people in a specific market to make it all about them, and how can we add value to them? So AI enables us to do things that were previously not possible from like a scale. So what does that mean? So let's say that like I want to send out his previously I sent out 1,000 physical mailers. Typically that mailers you're going to do one print run. It's going to be basically just about you. It's not going to be customized to the user. And I know there are some services that they'll put some generic like, oh, this home and your zip code sold for XYZ. So it gets a little personalized, but it's not like super personalized. Whereas now we can send out essentially digital mailers where we have an AI agent that first it'll spin up, it'll research the neighborhood, it'll figure out like, oh, there's a new bus line that got added, there's a new park in development, there's a new library that's opening up, or there's this new development. So it'll figure out what's all the new characteristics for that local area that might impact the value of residential real estate, and then it'll research the house from public information because all property information, or not all, but a lot of it is public record, either from permitting data or just from what's in the local tax assessor files. So we can figure out like, oh, you have per the public data, you have a 4-bed 3-bath rough square footage. We saw that you added this nice deck 3 years ago, and so the AI agent will compile all these data points, and then it'll make a very like personalized email or digital mailer, we call them, out to the homeowners, and it'll be like, hey, so and so, we noticed that you made XYZ improvements. And then also there's a new bus line that's being installed or planning to open. Are you curious on how this has been impacting homes in your area? We're happy to send over a customized report showing you how homes have been performing in your market recently. So it'd be something like that. And, we get a very it's value add to the customer because a lot of homeowners that even aren't looking to sell, they might think, yeah, that's great, I'd love to just know. And then it allows our agents that our customers, I should say, to begin a relationship with someone that they otherwise wouldn't be able to. And the way that we're doing that again is we're making it very personalized. And how do we add value? And it's not really anything about the agent in the first communications. It's always very, and we have a bunch of different variations. That's just one example of what we instruct AI to do. But imagine how much time that would take you to send one of those emails to like research all of that. Like even if you were super quick and it took 20 minutes, which is probably not really realistic, now send 3,000 of those. Like that's you don't have there's not enough hours in the month to do that. So and then you're busy. So like you're an agent, you're closing deals, you're meeting customers, you're doing showings. So it wasn't possible to do that before AI, and now it is. So it's like a new way to connect that previously wasn't possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So you are able now essentially send emails that are customized to who you're sending those emails out to versus in the past, like you mentioned, you could be sending mailers, you could be doing emails, and the only customization that you would really be able to do is maybe like the name, right? And the
Yeah.
address, like those things that are interchangeable. Nothing that's kind of like this where you're talking about, hey, I'm noticing this information about your specific neighborhood. I'm noticing that you made these changes to your property, right? If they're public record, you can actually cite or talk about that. That's really personalized to the individual, and I think that's a big part of utilizing AI is you're able to now customize to the audience that you're talking to instead of just in the past where you're able to send 3,000 emails, you're able to do it now, but it's just it's the same email, right? To just
All right.
3,000
Yeah.
different people.
Well, and then the other problem too is that when you do, mass marketing like that, and if you send the same email out, a lot of email providers like Gmail, for instance, which many, is probably the top email provider that's actively used now, these clients will pick up on it and be like, oh, this is clearly a promotion, not spam, but it's a promotional email. It's a marketing email. We've seen this sent, 500 times. So then those emails will go to the promotion tab. And unfortunately, what's become of the promotion tab is it's kind of like a spam light folder. It's like not malicious or not bad, but it's just like I don't know about you, but I never go to the promotion tab. I go there like once a month, and I'm like, wow, I have a lot of emails in this tab that I haven't read. That's basically the extent that I go to the promotions tab. So it's kind of you want to try to keep your emails out of that. So by highly personalizing your emails as well, you get better readership, you get better open rates and all that good stuff. So it really it snowballs into this thing where it just everything gets better because you're personalizing it to the user. And really, we want it to feel like it's like your neighbor that wrote it that knows a lot about your neighborhood. And we're obviously all real estate's local, so the agent that we're working with is local to the area anyway, so they should know about it if they don't. But really giving that level of personalization, so it starts to help to build trust. And it's like, oh, these people, or this agent is actually well informed on my neighborhood, even though it is AI. But we do give this information back to the agent, so they do become more well informed just from using AI.
Yeah, absolutely. They should be able to actually go in and be able to see these emails, make sure that they're actually talking about accurate information, not just
Right.
stuff that's being
Yeah.
pulled right on the internet as well. So that's really interesting, right? Because you did mention that there is essentially a better open rate when it comes to sending personalized emails versus just sending emails that are mass and the exact same to everybody. So have you guys ran tests between the two? Have you seen like maybe a specific uptick in, or even like just a general kind of ballpark uptick in percentage, but also maybe in conversion rates and open rates as well?
Yeah, so we do essentially response rate is what we track now. So again, a lot of these email providers have become very sophisticated. So by default, a lot of marketing platforms they'll insert those tracking links so that you can track when someone opens your email. ESPs have become sorry, I keep using that abbreviation, email service provider. So that's something like a Gmail or Outlook or Yahoo or whoever. And they become sophisticated and they want to try to like make sure that they're accurately prioritizing what emails that a customer views or not. And if they do detect too many of these types of signals that are like, oh, this is a tracking link, this is a template that's been sent to 1,000 people, it's not very customized to this recipient, it's probably okay to move this to the promotions tab. That's what happens. So not that like using it in isolation is going to send your emails to the promotion tab, but we actually don't track open rates because a lot of ESPs block it or they automatically open every email to scan it for viruses. So that data is actually very So for anyone out there listening, if you are tracking open rate, that's actually we've run tests. It's actually not very accurate anymore in 2025, unfortunately. When it came out, it was incredibly accurate. Over the years, it's so we would recommend actually turning that feature off if you're able to, because it should have an improvement on your email deliverability. And the data that you really want to, that you really at the end of the day care about, how many people are responding, how many people are clicking on the email, which you can obviously track. So those are the two big things. But to answer your question, yes, we have noticed upticks because we obviously have done a lot of email marketing in the past. So obviously the more you customize and the more you make the offer relevant to the person and the more value you can add to the individual receiving your email, obviously there's an extremely strong correlation between that and open rate. So a lot of it depends too on the market that we send in. We have noticed that certain zip codes and things like that typically have a lower open rate. It doesn't always make sense. We're still trying to figure out exactly what what the correlation is there, but some markets it performs incredibly well. It pretty much performs decently at least everywhere, but there are certain markets and maybe there's just not enough real estate agents there, or I don't know what's going on, but like really good response rates, like 6-7% response rates, which the average cold email response rate is like 0.4%. So it's order of magnitude better than average across the board.
Yeah, I mean that's close to what like, definitely more than 6 to 7 times better as far as response rates. And
Yeah.
that's really what right. That's really what an agent's looking for, right? It's not just kind of people clicking and opening the email. Because I mean, I'm sure people do this, right? They just open emails and read through them and don't really
Yeah.
actually care about what's in the context of the email. But as an agent, you're wanting to capture attention, right? You want the client to actually interact with you so that way you can actually, take them and help them close the transaction. So I think that's really important as well. I mean, so when it comes to actually utilizing these platforms, right, utilizing AI, I'm assuming these are all cold emails, right? So these are all like people who are essentially receiving the email from the agent either for the first time or pretty early on in the customer interaction. These are not kind of necessarily going back to like an existing database. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, for our initial, yeah, for what we're doing right now, it is mostly cold because again, we were new. So where we were at, it was, basically we had no database, so we were starting from scratch. But now we are actually very soon launching the feature that we can plug into CRMs and help you re-engage old leads again with that AI level of personalization that you otherwise would not have enough hours in the day to do. But yes, right now we're focusing on people that we don't have a relationship with. So you can think of it. We call it like AI seller farming, essentially. So I'm sure a lot of your agents are familiar with the concept of seller farming, where you're sending out mailers at a regular cadence to your market. We're doing the same thing, but instead of just like a generic offer or generic message, which again, when you're sending out mailers, usually has to be about the agent because you can't customize it to a home. And it especially depends on too if you're doing every door direct mail, or depending on exactly how you're mailing them out. You might not have any control over which houses get it, and you're kind of just like firing a postcard off to everyone in the zip code for better postage rates. But yeah. So we think of it more like AI seller farming, and yeah, it gets that high level of personalization.
Yeah, and the reason why I asked that is because I think it's really interesting when you're doing cold email because a lot of agents they either try to do cold email or have services done it for them. It's just really I've never really heard of anybody doing it where it's worked really well
Yeah,
because it's the first time, right? It's the first time somebody receiving your email. They're like, who is this person? Why are they talking to me? But also, like you mentioned earlier in our conversation, there's going to be the actual delivery rate is going to be really low, right? When it's cold email,
yeah,
when you haven't necessarily warmed up your email addresses as well. So,
correct.
you guys able to kind of, I guess, create solutions around that where you're getting, I mean, obviously you're getting great response rates, and these are all from cold emails. So I would love to,
Yeah.
maybe know a little bit more about how that's working and what the solution you guys have created for that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so and a tip for anyone out there listening, if you want to try cold email on your own and you're thinking like I'm going to go do that, my recommendation, do not do it on your own email, like on your main email that you're doing your transaction coordination with and talking with your actual customers, because if you go too high on the volume too quickly, you can end up on what these like block lists essentially, where it's like, oh, this is a spammer. And then not only will your cold email land in spam, now your email to your existing customers are going to start landing in spam. So we always set up a new email infrastructure for any of our customers. So that way, And we actually haven't really had it happen yet because we're very careful, and we really just try to add value, because a lot of times if you start irritating recipients, like not honoring opt-outs or things like that, that's when they start reporting emails as spam. But if you're very friendly and you try to be very value add, and really it's really more important about be value add to whoever you're emailing, that's where you typically don't get that big problem, and you're not going to essentially burn your email infrastructure. But a few things that you can do is, if you are going to try, doing some cold email, just go get a second domain, go get a second email, set it up so that way if anything happens, your main one isn't hurt. And then when you do start, keep it under 30, keep it under 50 emails per day. Don't go over that, because a lot of people are like, oh, I found a list of, a couple thousand people. I'm going to email them all today. Well, that's a very easy way, especially if it's a new domain or a new email inbox that you haven't been using before, or even an established one. If you're not sending 1,000 a day, and then all of a sudden, Google sees that, okay, this person sent 1,000 emails, it's like almost guaranteed you're going to go to the 100th email plus is going to go straight to spam, and then it's going to take a long time to come off that. Because one of these things that ESPs want is they want to see good engagement with your emails. They want to see good response rates. They want it to basically, again, they're trying to see, like, is this email adding value, and do our recipients want to see this email? And they have their internal ways of measuring that. So yeah, a lot of what a lot more than we thought we were going to have to build out is around making sure that our email sending infrastructure is high quality and lands in the primary inbox, and doesn't go to spam. So there's a lot of technical things, and like, even just for your listeners out there, when you're setting this up, make sure that all of your DNS records are set up correctly for your email, because there's been some new rules that Gmail, Yahoo, Microsoft have rolled out in recent years, where you have to now have certain DNS records set. So like, they want to see some type of DMARC policy. You need to have DKIM and SPF keys set. And these are like real technical terms, but it's essentially, you want to make sure that your DNS is kind of like a phone book. So you can think of it that way. And it's like, when people want to go to your website or email you, they look in this big phone book of the internet. And it's like, okay, so I'm trying to email, you know, daveclark.com or whatever it is. And they go look it up, and it's like, okay, so if you want, you'll have this thing called an MX record. That's where should we send the email? You'll have something called an A record. Where do I find the website? And then there's like SPF, DKIM, DMARC. These are all around, like, how do I know that whoever's sending the email is actually the person they say they are? So it's kind of like authentication and things like that. Because I'm sure everyone's probably got an email at one point in time or another where it's like, don't trust this sender, or this is unknown, or you get that big warning banner. That's because they don't have their DNS records set up correctly. And that's what will land you in spam very quickly, is if you start sending out a lot of emails, or really not even a lot, you just don't have those set up right. Very quickly, ESPs are not going to trust you, because they might think, oh, you're trying to, phish or impersonate someone else, or do something malicious, and then that you're going to end up in spam, or even worse, they just totally reject and block your emails, which then, it's a whole different problem to solve. But yeah, so a lot of, careful effort. And I guess for listeners out there, just start slow and ramp up, and you should be pretty good. As long as you're, again, trying to add value. But yeah, don't try to knock out like 5,000 emails in a day, because that's not going to end well.
Right. Yeah, I think that's one piece of it where a lot of people don't understand, right? They'll get the big email list, and then they'll just start sending automatically, like immediately, everything all at once, and then they'll understand that that's probably going to hurt their
Yeah.
like their sending or and their email that's trustability rate in general, if you will. So that's one of the things that I think a lot of people can take away from this as well. But kind of shifting a little bit, I would maybe want to get your take on just overall in general, maybe outside of email and customization. Where do you see AI going as far as specifically in the real estate industry? There's so many different agents out there who are using AI, right? Some people are using it very advanced level. Some people are
Yeah.
using it just kind of using ChatGPT to type out a text message or an email, themselves. Where do you see this going? How do you see it, like you mentioned earlier, transforming the real estate industry moving forward?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think there is going to be a lot of disruption on the operational side of real estate. So I think if you think of any manual action that you're doing today that you do more than once, I think there's a fairly good chance that that will be disrupted by AI. So I know, like, one thing that a lot of companies are working on, and not really us so much anymore, but like AI transaction coordinators, because again, that's not a licensed role a lot of states are okay with on the back end as long as there's no, customer facing. Like a lot of those emails and back and forth can be filled in or facilitated by AI as long as you have a human agent ultimately reviewing and making like doing the signing and making sure everything looks good. So I do think that there will be some for the bigger agents out there that are using transaction coordinators. I think that there's a good chance in the next couple of years we're going to see a lot of innovation in that space, or even it's like AI assistant transaction coordinators. So you're going to be able to get a lot more volume out of existing TCs. I think one of the huge, and this is what we're working on internally right now, is helping to manage your own database of context. Because I mean, I'm sure and you probably chat about this a lot. Is it's very important to build your database, and then engage with your database. And really, it is very difficult to meaningfully engage. Like we talk to a lot of agents that have 40, 50, maybe 100,000, if they've been in the market for a long time, 100,000 people in their database, and it's like, well, how do you meaningfully engage that? Because it's like you as an individual, even if you have a team, you can't really like personalize 100,000 messages. There's just not enough time in the day. So I think that is going to be something that there's a huge, you know, uh, opportunity for innovation in. And one of the things that we say, internally when we're chatting with other agents, AI is not coming to take the real estate agent's job. There's no chance of that. I'm more higher conviction on that now than a year and a half ago, really than ever. But the agent using AI will. So that's where it is very imperative to make sure that agents stay on the top of their game. They are, and it's not necessarily like bleeding edge, but if you look at the technology adoption curve, one step behind that, make sure that you are staying up to date and you are seeing like what are the tools that are actually making a difference in my real estate business that I can use, because the top agents are going to adopt this and they're going to start using it, and then those are the ones that are ultimately going to start to grow their businesses the most. So yeah, I think probably those are the two in the nearest term, and then one final one that we also see that's going to be here in the next couple of years, and probably you have some agents already using it. Is like AI voice assistants for real estate specifically, and especially like the first iteration of those, they're going to be, if you're too busy to take the call, your AI assistant's going to take the call, and it's going to have a small conversation. So it's going to be order of magnitude better than just like, "Hi, this is Dave Clark. Sorry, I missed your call." Leave your voicemail. It's going to actually be able to have a conversation. "Oh, how can I help you? Sorry, Dave is not available right now. I'll have him call you back at X time. Can he book some time on your calendar?" Yada yada yada. So it's a much better level again of personalization than you could do before. So probably those three areas are like the next areas that we think are going to definitely have AI is going to come and do it. It's already starting, and then yeah, beyond that, it just depends on how quickly models improve in their actual like usefulness and how well they're able to essentially zero shot understand what the user wants to do and get it right. And then that'll kind of open up a maybe slightly different set of use cases there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that, right? Because you narrowed it down to three things, and these three things are very important
Yeah.
in a real estate agent daily job, right? It's transaction management, transaction coordination. I think that's a big one. I haven't heard that one talked about quite as much as I probably should, to be honest. That one is actually quite interesting because there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, transaction coordination, database management, customizing that, and of course, voice agents, right? We've seen a lot of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A lot that for sure. And like you mentioned too, right? How we're able to kind of basically utilize these tools in a way where you mentioned the term zero shot, which is basically, my understanding, able to do this, without too much knowledge of like how to prompt the AI in order to do a very specific
Correct.
task. Well, and
Correct.
that allows the normal agent to be able to have accessibility to these tools. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because right now to really get an LLM that you can insert into a production workflow, you have to still. I mean, some of them are actually pretty good at doing generic higher level tests, but when you need to get very specialized, you usually have to do some level of like fine tuning, which is basically where you train the model on a whole host of resources. Like here's 10,000 purchase sale agreements, like so you can start to kind of learn it better. Here's how it should look. Here's a wrong one. Here's a good one, so that it can train it. And it, because really all that an LLM is is it's a mathematical representation of the training data that it looked at. So that's why you see all these companies, they're racing to build these, billion, $100 billion. I think OpenAI wants to try to do some like trillion dollar level of a data center, because essentially the way to minimize the loss function, which is like basically how accurate is this LLM, is to increase compute and increase the data that's training on. LLMs today are truly not intelligence. So that's why you can sometimes see these examples online where you'll trip it up on something that's like what's -11 minus 7, or that they probably have fixed that one by now, but there were some of these like really fundamental problems that it would just completely miss on, and you're like, what? But then it can give this incredibly sophisticated answer and give you like details of like 300 BC, what the Roman emperor. You could ask it any question on history and it'll do a pretty good one, but then there's other like domains where it'll make very silly mistakes. And that's because it's not truly intelligent from like a human intelligence where we're able to, do that level of thinking. So to kind of getting a little into the weeds there, but really AI is just, think of like a math formula that is applied to the data that it's looked at. Because all that, when they train an LLM, basically it's trying to predict the next word and how surprised the model is from the next word. So it's like, here's the source of truth, and it's like the chicken crossed the road. It's like, okay, you would feed in the chicken crossed blank, and then the AI would try to predict. And if it tried to predict river and the next word actually was road, it's not a huge miss. So it's not that surprised because it's like, oh, some object that you'd want to cross. But if let's say in the source of truth it was like cross the computer screen, be very surprised, and that's a huge miss. And then it's essentially it's like, oh, okay, our training data is bad, so we have to rerun that. So anyway, that is really, I think, what we need to kind of, like, the foundational companies need to kind of work on, is how do we actually make these models truly intelligent. That's kind of getting to this like AGI discussion. But yeah, so anyway, long answer to your question.
Yeah, no, that's actually really interesting too, man, because it's good to understand how AI works in order to best apply it to your daily business as well. So, Dave, man, just want to say thank you for taking the time today and sharing a little bit about your value and sharing with the audience how they can leverage AI to improve their real estate business as well. So, for our listeners, our viewers out there that want to connect with you, that want to learn a little bit more about what it is that you do, what are some of the best ways for people to actually reach out to you or to just learn a little bit more about your business?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So check out, so our main product that we work with agents for right now is DealJoy.AI. And I'm happy to chat with any of your listeners too. So just feel free to, you can find me on LinkedIn. So David Clark Tech, or just look for David Clark DealJoy, because again, there's 30,000 Dave Clarks out there, or the Dave Clark on X. But I'm happy, like, if you're having email delivery problems, I'm happy to just chat through and, help out however I can. And if anyone is looking for ways to, find new sellers in their market using AI, come check us out, DealJoy.AI. I'm happy to give anyone a demo of the platform too, and kind of show some of the real responses that we're getting for our agents that are customers, because we are connecting agents with a lot of homeowners in their market that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to reach. So yeah, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We'll make sure to leave the link to your website as well as your LinkedIn profile in the description, the show notes down below, so you guys can check it out. But other than that, man, Dave, just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. Before I let you go, is there any last pieces of advice, any last tips, or I guess like little golden nuggets you want to leave with the audience here?
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so what we see a lot is in your signature block, people will often put like, "Oh, here's a link to every one of my social media profiles. Here's 10 images." Get rid of all that. Put Now, you need typically your address to be CAN spam compliant. So put your like brokerage headquarters or your business address. If you need to put your license number, do that. Maybe your phone number, but don't put 100 links in your signature, because that hurts your deliverability hugely. So stop doing that.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much, Dave. Appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next show. Take
Sounds
care.
great. Thanks, Kobe.